The little ceramic gnome had been sitting beside the flower bed for almost 3 years when the white envelope appeared on my front door. Remove immediately. HOA violation. Daily fines begin in 24 hours. I read it twice and looked back at the small gnome wearing a red hat and holding a tiny watering can. It wasn't broken. It wasn't blocking anything. It was barely taller than my ankle. My 8-year-old daughter Lily stepped onto the porch and saw the paper in my hand. "Did they finally like Mr. Pickles?" she asked with a smile. I couldn't answer right away. Mr. Pickles was the last thing my late mother gave Lily before she passed away. My daughter talked to that little gnome every morning, before school, like it was part of the family. "They want us to move him," I finally said. Lily's smile disappeared. "But Grandma bought him for me." Before I could respond, a black SUV stopped in front of my house. Out stepped Barbara Hayes, the president, wearing sunglasses even though the sky was covered with clouds. "You received the notice?" she asked without even saying hello. "Yes." "Good. Some decorations lower community standards?" I looked across the street. 3 houses had flamingos in their yards. One had a 6-foot metal rooster. Another had 2 stone lions beside the driveway. I pointed toward them. "What about those?" Barbara folded her arms. "Those were approved." "When?" "They just were." Then she leaned closer and lowered her voice. "Single parents already bring enough problems into property values. Don't make this harder than it needs to be." For a second, I thought I heard her wrong. "You find my daughter's garden gnome because I'm a single mother?" Barbara smiled. "No, I'm finding the violation." She turned around and walked away. That should have been the end of it. Instead, the next morning, the gnome was gone. Not moved. Not hidden. Gone. And taped to the empty spot in the flower bed was a second HOA notice. "Failure to comply has consequences." That was the moment I realized this was never about a garden gnome. Someone had entered my yard during the night. Someone wanted us scared. What I didn't know yet was that half the neighborhood had security cameras pointed directly at my front lawn. And several people had already seen who took Mr. Pickles. By noon, I had already checked behind the bush, under the porch, and even near the trash bins. Mr. Pickles was nowhere. Lily sat quietly on the front steps holding the little watering can that used to sit beside him. "He wouldn't leave without saying goodbye," she whispered. That sentence hit harder than any HOA fine ever could. An hour later, my doorbell rang. It was my neighbor, Mike, holding a tablet in his hand. "You need to see this." The video showed my front yard at 2:13 in the morning. A figure walked through my gate carrying a flashlight. The person looked around, picked up Mr. Pickles, and walked away. Then the porch light came on for a second. The face became clear. "Barbara Hayes." I stared at the screen. Mike shook his head. "You're not the only one she visited last night." "What do you mean?" Before he could answer, another neighbor walked over. Then another. Soon 6 people were standing in my yard. Mrs. Carter from the corner house crossed her arms. "Last month, she removed my grandson's basketball hoop and blamed teenagers." A man behind her nodded. "She reported my truck as abandoned while it was parked in my own driveway." An older veteran named Tom stepped forward. "And she keeps saying her HOA powers are bigger than city law." People looked at each other. For the first time, nobody was whispering about Barbara. They were angry. Then Tom asked the question everyone was thinking. Did anyone actually vote for her? The street suddenly became quiet. Nobody answered. Not one person remembered an election. Not one person remembered signing anything. Mike slowly looked down at his tablet. That gets worse. He opened another video. This one showed Barbara placing HOA violation letters on doors at nearly midnight. House after house. Envelope after envelope. But something else caught my eye. The logo on the letters wasn't the same one printed on mine. The HOA name was different. Very different. Barbara wasn't just stealing garden gnomes. Someone had created an OA that might not even exist. Then my phone rang. The caller ID showed an unknown number. I answered. A calm voice said only 7 words before hanging up. Check your property records before sunset. That was it. No name, no explanation. Just a warning that made my stomach drop. Because if someone wanted me checking property records, they already knew I wasn't going to like what I found. I drove to the county records office that same afternoon while Lily stayed with Mrs. Carter across the street. The woman behind the desk typed my address into her computer and frowned. That's strange. My heart started racing. What is? She turned the screen toward me. According to the records, my property had never officially joined the HOA. I stared at the page. That can't be right. I've been paying HOA fees for almost 4 years. The woman looked again. I'm sorry, but your house sits outside the HOA boundary line. For a few seconds, I couldn't speak. Every warning letter, every fine, every payment, none of it should have happened. Can you print that for me? She handed me the papers, and she paused. Actually, there's something else. She clicked another file. 3 years earlier, someone had submitted paperwork requesting my property be added to the HOA area. The request had been rejected. The reason was simple. Owner refused consent. I looked at the signature line. My signature wasn't there. Instead, someone had written my name in handwriting I had never seen before. Someone had tried to place my home under HOA control without my permission, and someone had failed. As I walked back to my car, my phone buzzed again. Another unknown number. This time it was a text message. Barbara isn't the owner of that HOA. Attached was a photo. It showed Barbara standing beside a tall man outside a restaurant. The message underneath read, "That's her brother? He prints the notices." Before I could react, another message arrived. Check the HOA business registration. I opened the state records website on my phone. The HOA company existed. But the president listed on the documents wasn't Barbara Hayes. It wasn't even someone from our neighborhood. The registered president lived 2 states away. Barbara wasn't running she was using someone else's name. My hands tightened around the phone. Then my doorbell camera sent an alert. Someone was standing on my porch. I opened the live feed. Barbara held another envelope in one hand. In the other hand, she was holding Mr. Pickles. She looked directly into my camera and smiled. Then she placed the gnome on the ground, taped the new notice to my door, and spoke directly into the lens. You had your warning. Tomorrow your car is next. For the first time since this started, I wasn't scared. Because hidden behind the flowers near my porch was a second camera Barbara didn't know existed. And this camera had audio. That night I watched the recording again and again. The video was clear. Barbara placed the notice on my door. Barbara returned the stolen gnome. And Barbara looked straight into the camera and said, "Tomorrow your car is next." The next morning my driveway was empty. My car was gone. Lily ran outside and stopped in the middle of the yard. "Mom, where's the car?" Then I saw the orange paper hanging from the mailbox. Vehicle removed by HOA enforcement due to repeated violations. My hands shook as I read it. HOA enforcement? There was no company name, no phone number, nothing. Just another fake notice. Before panic could set in, Tom pulled into my driveway. "They took mine too," he said. Behind him came Mike. "And my truck?" Then Mrs. Carter. "And my son's car?" Barbara had made a mistake. She hadn't targeted one house. She had started a war with the entire street. By afternoon, neighbors were checking cameras. Every house had footage. Different angles. Different times. The videos showed the same towing company entering the neighborhood before sunrise. One detail stood out immediately. The tow truck had no business name on it. No company logo. Nothing. Mike zoomed in on one frame. The driver stepped out for a few seconds. Tom looked at the screen and laughed in disbelief. That's Barbara's brother. The same brother from the restaurant photo. The same brother connected to the fake HOA letters. Within an hour, the real police were involved. The officers watched the videos quietly. Then one officer asked a question that changed everything. Who gave permission for these vehicles to be removed? Barbara proudly stepped forward. I did, as HOA president. The officer looked at her. Can you prove your authority over these properties? Barbara handed him a folder. He flipped through the papers, then flipped through them again. Finally, he looked up. Ma'am, these addresses aren't even inside your HOA. The crowd went silent. Barbara's confidence disappeared for the first time. There must be some mistake. There is, the officer replied. Several of them, the forged signatures, the fake violations, the stolen property, the illegal towing, the fake authority. It all started falling apart in front of everyone. Then Mike handed the officer the audio recording from my hidden camera. Barbara's voice played through the speaker. You had your warning. Tomorrow your car is next. Nobody said a word. Barbara slowly turned toward me. You set me up? I looked at her and shook my head. No, Barbara. You recorded yourself. By sunset, police cars were parked outside her house instead of mine. Her brother was questioned about the towing operation. Investigators began looking into years of fines and payments collected from families who were never supposed to be under HOA control in the first place. The number kept growing. 10 homes, then 15, then 23. Thousands of dollars had disappeared. A week later, every affected family received refunds. The fake notices stopped. The threats stopped. The fear stopped. 2 days after that, someone knocked on my door. It was Tom holding a small box. Inside was a brand new garden gnome. Then another neighbor arrived with one. Then another. By evening, more than 30 garden gnomes covered my front yard. Police officers, firefighters, baseball players, tiny soldiers. Even one dressed like a sheriff. Lily laughed harder than I had heard in months. Right in the middle stood Mr. Pickles, wearing his red hat and holding his tiny watering can. A small note sat beside him. Some people use power to scare neighbors. Real neighbors use their voices to protect each other. For the first time since all this started, the street felt different. Not quieter, stronger. Barbara thought nobody would speak. She was wrong, because sometimes the loudest thing in a neighborhood isn't an HOA president. It's 30 neighbors deciding they have seen enough.